This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Look, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks, and news around the NHL. On tonight's episode, Dave is a little bit under the weather, so he won't be joining us for tonight. But on the schedule, we do have a couple things to talk about. The 2021 NHL trade deadline is officially over. There's no more trades. Everybody's settling where they're at. These are the teams that you're looking at now for the rest of the season. It's done. We're going to be talking about the Wings trades, the Hawks trades, because both teams had a pretty decent number of trades overall to talk about. The Wings having a really big one this week. And then after we talk about the trades and the trade deadline, we're going to be talking about, our segments, the flashback and the flash forward, where we talk about the week that was and the week that's going to be for both the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings. And then we're also going to be talking about a little bit of news on each team's front. The big pieces of news for Detroit's end, obviously the Anthony Mantha trade, it's huge. Just what it signals for the Red Wings rebuild, what it means just for the club in general, potential prospect development chances. Also the fact that Joe Veleno clears quarantine this week. So just sort of might he get a look at the NHL level? We don't know yet, but again, just sort of talking about what that means. And then on the Hawks end, again, a lot of trades to go over. The guys made a lot of pickups and departures at the trade deadline this year. So again, let's just go over those as well. And then really, that's going to be it for the show, unless we have some fan mail that comes in during the show. In the meantime, though, I'm going to be your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and my co-host, Tim Stompanato and Nick LePage. Everybody, welcome to the Stick Blade Podcast. How are you both doing tonight?
Doing great. Lots, again, we recorded last Sunday night. We knew that the trade deadline was going to be big. I don't think we realized just maybe how big, of course, it was going to be, but we're thrilled to be, I'm thrilled to be here and breaking down some of these trades this week.
Yeah, exciting week. It's jam-packed. It's going to be a jam-packed show. A lot to cover. And, it's great to see some new faces with our teams now. And yeah, I'm excited to be here, boys. As always, it's one of my favorite parts of the week is, talking shop with you boys and recording. So
I think it's cool to see already, at least with the Hawks, some of our trade acquisitions that were right before the deadline showing up and making a big impact for the team early. There's a couple guys that I think we are already making us feel like, yeah, we made the right decision picking them up or moving on from the assets that we did to get them. And you love to see that. You always worry that sometimes it might take a guy a little bit to get used to the team, gel a little bit, but there's been some really nice early returns so far.
Yeah, that's a good point you make, Tim, too, especially with this being the trade deadline theme show. Buyer's remorse could kind of settle quickly for teams if they don't see production right away. So, but yeah, we see some names already that's been dealt to new places that have already made a big impact for their teams. So, why don't we just get into it there, Jordan?
All right,
let's dive in.
So I want to save the Red Wings trade deadline for last because I feel like the moves that they made are a lot bigger in terms of the long-term picture for their club. So let's go ahead and just start with the Hawks first. And because you guys also you had a lot more trades this trade deadline after we recorded. So you guys made a couple trades. First off, Madison Bowey goes to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a 4th-round draft pick. Carl Soderberg goes to Colorado in exchange for Josh Dickinson and Ryder Rolson. You guys trade a 5th-round pick and Janmark to Vegas for a 2nd and a 3rd-round draft pick. And then Matthew Highmore goes to the Vancouver Canucks as well, and you guys end up picking Adam Gaudette for him. So you're basically, in my opinion, you sent Madison Bowey, a guy who did not have long-term potential with the club, to the Vancouver Canucks for a 4th-round pick. It's basically a free pickup. Soderberg to Colorado for Dickinson and Rolson. Good. You picked up a decent prospect for a guy who probably wasn't sticking around again.
No.
Janmark in a 5th to Vegas for a 2nd and a 3rd. Congratulations. You upgraded a 5th-round draft pick to a 2nd and a 3rd.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that to me that's the big one to break down, but that couldn't be happier with that return. I was hoping for either a second or would settle for a third. So to get both is a win.
And the last move that you guys made is you guys traded Matthew Highmore to Vancouver as well, and you guys got Adam Gaudette. So again, I feel like you guys just traded a lot of redundant pieces and pieces that were expiring for draft picks.
Here's the thing, and Nick, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as well. Soderberg is one of the interesting trades because we signed him after we knew Tays wasn't going to be in. Doc went down. We said, oh God, we've got no centers. Signed 34 or 35-year-old Carl Soderberg, who is stable, consistent, best served as a third or fourth line center, but we needed somebody who could do the job. And getting him at the trade deadline to pick up Rolston is the big one.
Yeah.
It's still an unknown relatively, it's not a guarantee by any means. I think he was a 5th round pick, but he's been really climbing the ladder at Notre Dame and has really been having a heck of a season. The other guy's an ECHL level, it sounds like, but Rolston really has some potential here.
Yeah. So, one way I was describing it, because I was talking to my buddy about the trade, like during trade deadline while it was going on, and he was like upset. And he's like, we could have got a draft pick for him. What I try to say to him is like, the Hawks they were interested in, they were Stan Bowen, we know, loves Notre Dame. Notre Dame is his alum, and he's big on these Notre Dame guys, like also Vinny Hinestroza. He's a Notre Dame kid as well. But wouldn't you rather trade for a commodity that that you liked at some point than a mystery 5th round pick, like a future 5th round pick?
Definitely.
You don't know what's going to be there. So to get a prospect like Rolston, and like you said, he's climbing the ladder. Right now his biggest weakness is his skating. He has a great shot, great hockey IQ. It's just his skating is something that's concerning for scouts. So all in all, I mean, you got a 5th round pick for Carl Soderberg, and it was a guy that you didn't have on your roster to start the season until we found out about Tays and Doc being out. So you got a guy that you may have wanted last season in the draft, and Ryder Rolston for someone that wasn't going to be part of our future no matter what. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's how I look at the Janmark trade too. We signed him for depth because this season was an unknown. We didn't know how many of our young guys would actually take a step forward. We wanted to make sure we had some middle six. Actually, we really got him to improve our penalty kill. Yeah. And he was a pleasant surprise with supplemental middle six scoring. He exceeded expectations, but he wasn't part of the long-term plan. I know that there's people that are really high on him that want to see him back, and I like the guy a lot, but I just think that we have younger guys that are in our pipeline that could do that job in the future. And so getting that kind of draft capital for him, I understand that it's an overpayment a little bit, but I think it's a realistic and understandable payment. If you're Vegas, who picked him up, that's the kind of person that you add to your team when you've got a Stanley Cup caliber team. Now you've got another middle six guy that can get involved in the play, kill penalties, score goals. That's something that's worth a second and third to you, because that could put you over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Matthias Janmark and the Blackhawks knew what they were getting into before the season even started. They were both using each other this year. Let me build your draft, let me build your trade stock, and get stuff what I need for the future. And Janmark came to the Blackhawks, 1-year deal. Let me sign a prove it deal, get dealt somewhere where I could go win and make more money next season. So let's not forget too, Vegas got a good look at Janmark last season in the playoffs. Against Dallas in, what was it, the conference final or second round? It was second round. But yeah, so Vegas and Dallas squared off. They know Janmark's game. He's one of those guys that's just going to be tough to play against, especially a playoff type player too. It's just a guy you want on your team and don't want to go up against. So I love the trade for the Hawks. A second and third, when especially 1 point in 10 games in the final 10 games of the Blackhawk for Janmark.
I am over the moon. It should be noted that it's a second in this year's draft and a third in next year's draft, and the fifth that we gave up was for next year's draft.
Yes, that's a good point to make. So yeah, let's not get we don't have. I mean, we still got a good draft capital for this season, but the third rounder is next year. So all in all, great.
I was gonna say, which I'm actually excited about. I'm glad because this year is going to be such an unknown. I'm excited about having a second in a draft where gems could really fall from the first into the second because of scouting questions. But I'm glad that we're stockpiling for a more consistent draft next year.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all in all, a great trade. Janmark was a guy that Colleton loved. He brought that, mentality that the Hawks needed this year, or you're not going to outskill people by winning. To win, you're not going to outskill people this year. You're going to outwork them to win. So,
and he did. He embodied that. He's one of the people that really, I think, helped build that culture. I think this whole year, from the signing to the play and the roles that he was given to the trade, I think everybody won the whole Janmark experience this year.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for both parties. Win-win-win for all three parties, I guess.
If you include Janmark as a party, which I do.
Yeah.
I think it's
100%.
a triple win.
Yeah. So, best of luck to him in Vegas. Enjoyed him at being a Hawk, even though when I first signed him, I didn't think I would. But hey.
I was high on Walmark more than Janmark, and look which Mark had the impact.
Look which one we're missing now. But yeah, I mean, so good luck to him in Vegas, and yeah, you're gonna see a deep run by Vegas with moves like that, and a guy like Janmark who could play power play, penalty kill, and up and down your lineup.
And the Madison Bowie trade, I like a lot. We signed Madison Bowie to a guarantee because DeHaan wasn't a guarantee to be eligible for the expansion draft because of the lack of games he'd played the last 2 years. We signed Bowie as a guarantee that we'd have someone eligible to be exposed. That said, I liked his play in the games that he played with us. I mean, he didn't razzle or dazzle, but he didn't, he wasn't a liability either. I think the fact that we got a fourth for him, considering we signed him just to make sure we had someone to expose, how do you complain about that?
I mean, let's be honest. How many Hawks fans here have forgot that Madison Bowie was even a thing on the Hawks?
We didn't give you a hint. It's all of them.
Yeah, Madison Bowie played 2 games for the Hawks,
and it really is a shame because I like his style of play. I think that on a legitimate team, he's a third line guy that can have a couple of minutes. Again, he's not going to blow you away on anything, but he doesn't seem like a liability either.
No, yeah, I mean you're. I mean I know Jordan. I think Jordan shared his thoughts on it, but he was on 2 struggling teams or 2 rebuilding
teams. On a legitimate team that has the right defenseman in their roles. I think as a 6th or 7th defenseman, you could do worse than Bowie.
Yeah, I mean, look at Michael Roosevelt. We dealt with him for a great team.
The Husk of Roosevelt.
Yeah,
but
so Bowie. I mean, you got something so you traded Bowie in a 5th for Vancouver's 4th. Essentially, you upgraded your pick to a 4th pick, and for a guy that had no use.
Now, the Highmore trade is interesting to me.
Is intriguing.
We've talked about this a little bit. I really got enamored with Highmore last year during the playoffs in the bubble because that 4th line of Highmore, Carpenter, and Kampf was our strongest, most consistent line throughout the playoffs. That said, this year, Highmore is a great 4th line energy guy, but you can replace that. He played a very transferable game that we have other guys that are in the pipeline that can fill. Gaudette still has a lot of potential to be a top 9 scorer. And I'm really, really excited to see what he can bring to the table in a change of scene, because I know that it feels like he had sort of worn out his welcome in Vancouver, or there was there were disputes over his usage in Vancouver. So it'll be curious to see what he does with a change of scenery.
Yeah, I mean, Gaudette was a Hobie Baker winner too in NCAA. So that really shows his offensive upside. And again, like you said, I don't think he was really given a chance to flourish in Vancouver. Highmore, like we seen him in the bubble last season, and again, he was a good fourth liner, a good guy to have on a winning team and to be on your fourth line. And
great energy guy.
yeah, and that was what Colleton said. It was kind of funny, like the thread going around. It's what you say about a person who's not great, but he's a
great personality.
Yeah, great personality. Always great hockey sense. It's always you say those words about a guy that's not like a great player,
that
but
you can't talk about his hands or his speed or
he's a guy you love to have around. But Gaudette is intriguing, man. I do think he could be a potential fit for this team going forward. Like I said, he won Hobie Baker. He's got offensive upside. He's a bigger build. And yeah, I mean, the one knock on him, I think, was he was patient zero for that COVID outbreak in Vancouver. But I'm excited to see when he eventually is allowed to play. I know there's still some visa issues to work out, and I believe he was practicing though already. But yeah, I'm excited to see what that happens. That was the first trade the Hawks made on deadline day, and it was an intriguing one for sure. I mean, one of the Vancouver beat writers said that this was selling low on Gaudette, and that Highmore is like they should have got more than Highmore. So, all in all, kudos to Stan. As much as I criticize him, there was not one trade he's made of the 6 trades he made this past week and a half, 2 weeks that I had a ill feeling about. I was a fan of every move he made. It was he might be back. Stan Bowman might be back in.
And I hate to be the kind of person that that reiterates rumors or, that sort of stuff. But there were a lot of arguments that some of his moves were driven by McDonough to keep that window open, that he would have started a rebuild a couple years earlier had it not been for McDonough. And truth be told, I don't know if maybe there was a shift somewhere else or whatever, but it certainly appears that this version of Stan Bowman under new management, he's sort of able to do his thing. Yeah. Because again, even looking at last week, the week leading up to the deadline, the Hinostroza trade, the Connolly and Stillman trade, we are seeing immediate returns. Hinostroza had 0 points in 9 games for Florida this year. He's got 5 points in 6 games for us now. Like, that's incredible. Brett Connolly scored in his first game with us. Stillman is really stepping up to the plate and taking on more minutes than expected with Boquist and Han day to day.
Yeah.
This is exciting to see, to have a little faith again in Stambo.
Yeah, it is. It is exciting. I guess we should touch on the one trade that didn't happen. Zadorov stays put, as we all know now. But the Hawks were listening. Stan Bowman was listening. I guess he wasn't enamored with anything he got. So he was looking for a first round pick essentially.
And here's the thing. You don't got to move him yet.
No,
you could trade his rights on draft day or, maybe even sign something and then flip him later. I'm glad to see he didn't just react, that he clearly has something in mind and he wasn't going to sell for less because he didn't need to. I dig that.
The funny thing, one funny thing that came from that though is like the final note for the Hawks for the day is like Zadorov stays put in Chicago, and I think it was Pierre LeBrun. Zadorov stays in Chicago. Hawks are thrilled and happy to keep him. And then a couple hours later, Nikita Zadorov is a healthy scratch for Monday night's game. So,
oh God, yeah, it's hilarious, but I do think there was something where like the lineup came out and they did it just in case. And then once the lineup's announced, they weren't going to change who was in. And it doesn't hurt to have benched Zadorov for a game, given the amount of penalties he was taking.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, we could see what happens in the future with him. I don't think he's going to be part of it, but
it is a shame because it goes back to personality. I just watched a video of him mic'd up and he just seems like an absolute blast. He's funny. I guess he's great for some good quotes. I like the guy. And again, I like defensive defensemen. I wish that he acted a little more comfortable with the puck and it didn't feel like he would, oh God, what's this thing doing on my stick? But other than that, I'm curious to see how we use him moving forward.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But Jordan, I know you're sitting on a big trade over there.
Oh, I know it's burning a hole in you. We can listen. I think we've covered a lot for the Hawks.
Yeah.
Is there anything you feel like we're missing, Nick?
No, I mean, just Hawks related news. Nylander's skating again, not with the team, but individually.
That's exciting.
So it's exciting, but let's tee up Jordan here because the Wings got something special that happened.
The Wings do have some special news. There are a couple things I want to talk about with the Hawks trade deadline, though.
Please.
So I know people wanted Zadorov gone, and we're gonna touch on this a little bit later. But Steve Yzerman himself even said in his his post trade deadline talk, when you're in the middle of a rebuild, you can't fire sale everybody. You have to at some point put a serviceable product on the ice. And looking at Chicago's trades this deadline, yes, you guys are in a rebuild. Now, are you guys rebuilding in the sense of like you're at the bottom of the standings? No, but you guys are trying to acquire assets. And Stan Bowman did that this trade deadline. Did he go out and get first and second round draft picks? Well, no, but again, because you didn't move anybody who was really notable to trade. The saying goes, if you want to get something, you got to give something. And the Hawks didn't give this trade deadline anything from their core pieces, so they weren't going to get. But again, small moves, marginal moves that can help your team in 3 or 4 years. Those guys who you might pick up in the 3rd or 4th round who pan out as 3rd or 4th liners. Stan Bowman really did a decent job of picking those up this trade deadline. I mean, there are a lot of guys who go in the 3rd or 4th round of this, or of really any draft year, where they pan out, and even if they become a 4th line shutdown guy, guess what? If your team's still mid rebuild, when that guy matures, trade him, you get more assets. It's revolving. And I think really Stan Bowman did a good job of managing that for you guys this trade deadline.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, he built for the future. Even like the NHL level talent that the Hawks acquired, there's still a plan with them in mind. I know we kind of briefly covered it last week, how it was always the idea of taking on Brett Connolly's contract. Stan Bowman says, hey, we knew what he was in Washington. He was a key contributor to them being a Stanley Cup champion. He's a 20-goal scorer, and we believe he could find that here. And then Vinny Hinostroza, we see what he's been doing lately. He's 5 assists in 6 games. He might be a piece of the future now. So
that's such an interesting one to me, because at first it's like, okay, he's a depth piece this year, and whether we can move on from him or we can, whatever. Suddenly he's meshing really well. And he brings that speed. We suddenly have a second Hagel on the team, basically.
So I mean, everything Stan has done was considering the future. You may not have seen a fire sale because the Hawks are not in that. They're still pushing for maybe a playoff spot. But I mean, all in all, you got to be thrilled. You got maybe top 3 center with Henrik Borgstrom in that potential trade with Florida. You got Vinny Hinostroza. You got Riley Stillman, who could be Zadorov's replacement maybe one day. Brett Connolly, and then a bunch of draft pick assets. You got to be thrilled. You don't know what those draft picks may be, but you don't know what they are, and you're not too concerned about them until draft day. So it's
exactly. And then we proceed to start following these guys' careers and immediately reacting, overreacting, or you know how it goes.
Best player in the world, 1 goal in 1 game.
Or an absolute bum that we wasted a pick on, and there's no in between.
Yeah, but when it comes to draft capital, you could always it's always promising because you're just looking forward.
Yep, exactly.
So all in all, a great job, Stan Bowman. But let's talk about Stevie Y. Let's talk about Stevie Y.
Let's hear about the Yzer plan, buddy.
So, I can't believe this one's okay. So for anyone who was not watching the NHL trade deadline, Detroit trades Anthony Mantha to the Washington Capitals for Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, this year's 1st round draft pick, next year's 2nd round draft pick. Now, I know people are like, Jacob Vrana is not the same player as Anthony Mantha. You're right. He's a completely different player. Mantha is a big-bodied guy who loves to just basically play like the feed it to me style game. That's not Jacob Vrana's style. And I get people are like, well, he's not as good as Mantha. Okay, but he's also not inked for $6 million. And which is what Mantha was inked for. The Richard Panik pickup part of that trade, Washington basically just gave us a free draft pick to take on his salary.
Yep.
If I'm being completely honest. I liked Anthony Mantha when he was on his game. Last year, when he was on pace for 30 goals a season, dominated play basically every shift. Would I have been happy with him as at 6 million? Yeah, of course I would. Any team in the league would be happy with that
Yeah.
at 6 million. That's why Washington picked him up, because they can put him with players who continuously put him in that position. TJ Oshie, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Nick Backstrom, Alex Ovechkin, John Carlson. The list goes on. He lets Washington be deep in ways that you can start moving those guys who are just top six fixes throughout your lineup. You know, those three lines or the fourth. You had to make up a pickup like this. And we were kind of talking about it before the show, but Washington's window, I think, is getting ready to close in the next, 3 or 4 years. Alex Ovechkin, yeah, he's still scoring at a crazy high pace, but he can't keep it up forever. Nick Backstrom's not getting any younger. Oshie's not getting younger. John Carlson's already 31. Like, they're in the last couple of years of their, I would say, cup contention window. You got a chance to pick up a guy like Anthony Mantha, who's in his mid-20s, and he's inked to, a very reasonable term for.
If he plays to or close to his potential, it is an incredibly reasonable contract for the term.
Mm-hmm. And it's certain. That's the other thing. Jacob Vrana and Richard Panik, their salaries are not certain. So it's Washington picked up certainty. Detroit picked up uncertainty, but Detroit got draft picks for picking up uncertainty. And that's really this trade in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, again, the best thing about this, I mean, it was a phenomenal trade for the Red Wings. I had it down as a win for the Wings, and kind of
same.
Washington gave up a lot for Anthony Mantha, especially for his production this year. We'll cover into what he's been doing after we break this down, but with it coming at the buzzer at the trade deadline, it trickled in 20 minutes after the league trades closed, but the trade tracker was still trickling in and everything was getting finalized. And to see Anthony Mantha going to Washington for Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, and a first and a second, I mean, you got to be happy. You were just thinking you might get draft picks for him, or you didn't even know he was a guaranteed to move.
No, like legit. If the trade would have came out and it would have been Anthony Mantha for a first and second round draft pick,
you'd been enamored.
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, cool, no problem.
But you got a former first round pick in Jacob Vrana. He's definitely a potential 30 goal scorer when he finds a consistent game. I think that's the one knock on him. Like when he's on, but he'll have those nights where he's off.
And that's, I think, something interesting with Mantha in Washington is that if he takes a night off, there are still Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Oshie, Backstrom, Carlson. You've got your top six and your top defenseman, all that. There's a little more consistency with their star power that if Mantha takes a night off, you survive. In Detroit, Mantha really needed to be a leader, being a driving force of play with Larkin and Zadina and them, setting the tone. When he takes a night off in Detroit, it is much more noticeable and much more detrimental than if he does it in Washington. So if I'm Washington, the reward is worth the risk. Whereas I think Jacob Vrana, I like his style of play. I think that he could be a really interesting piece working with your current top six.
And he's an RFA after this season, right?
Yep. So you still hold status. Rights. Who knows what the contract to be or if he has arbitration, but you still have negotiating power with him to lock him up potentially if you like him.
And I think this might be a nice change of scenery for him too, because he was a stud going out through his juniors, and he was a high draft pick for the Washington, not high, but a first round pick.
Yeah.
This might be a good thing for him to be the guy, like one of the guys in Detroit. He was kind of a secondary scorer on the Capitals. Now he's going to be looked upon like, hey, we need you to play a big role. And, he's going to get a lot of power. He's going to be a big power play guy for the Wings. So he's got a hell of a shot. I'm excited for the Wings. That's even Hawks fans on Twitter. They're like, wow, what a trade. This is why Stevie Y is what he does. And, every time that phone rings from Yzerman, you got to be a little bit worried because something's up his sleeve. And this just shows, what a trade for the Wings. And God, I'm excited for you guys' future.
Yeah, 100%. That was the big sexy trade we were looking for.
Yeah, all in all, we're like, where's the big trade? Where's the big trade?
Where's the big one? It's not the Taylor Hall trade because we got more for Janmark than
I can't wait to talk about that one.
Oh yeah, we'll save that for when we talk about other teams and all that jazz. But
and then I want to throw in David because David obviously not here, upper body injury out week to week.
Yeah, unknown timetable.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. He wanted to give his little insight on the Mantha trade. He said in terms of the Mantha trade, he loves it. It gives the Wings more draft picks for the rebuild. It gives Mantha a fresh start. He's excited to see what Verona could do with guys like Larkin and Zadina. So David's a fan. I know you guys want to see the best out of Mantha too. But yeah, it's a win for the Wings.
Yeah, easy.
Like the other thing I kind of like about this trade is I equivalate Verona to Robbie Fabry in the situation he was in St. Louis, where he's not a good player. It's just you've got a bunch of guys up front who are better than you, and you don't get a chance to shine as bright. Whereas when he gets the chance to come to Detroit, he's got that chance because we're still rebuilding. I mean, St. Louis, they were pretty much done with their rebuild. Washington, done with their rebuild. It's hard to crack top sixes with those lineups when.
Where does this leave Svechnikov now?
That I want to talk about.
God knows.
Speaking of hard to crack top 6 or top 9, what's happening to our boy Svech?
So he's still playing with the club, but that's the thing that I don't know is going to happen this offseason. I like the kid. I think a lot of fans like the kid. And I think that, the Wings organization likes his work ethic. The problem is he has not been successful this season. I mean, like he works hard, but just it doesn't seem to be coming together for him.
Maybe I change of scenery and he's going to be a UFA. It's not like they have to trade him. He could just walk.
And like, in all fairness, if he wants to walk, I wish him the best. Unfortunate injuries happened. It derailed his career for a bit. The Wings accidentally picked up a surprise in Fabry, Zadina, and Raymond while he was out. So
it's no fault to the club and it's no fault to Svech. And I wouldn't blame him for walking. But I just hope I like the guy. I like Evgeny Svechnikov a lot. I want to see him on a team that he might not be a top 6 player, but he's certainly a third liner. I'd like to see him on a team where he can at least get consistent time and have a career.
Yeah, like send him, like you said, to a team where he can be a third liner. And I've got no qualms with that. I think he's good enough to be a third liner. You put him with a very proficient playmaker. I think he can. I think he could probably see 15 goals.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to be, again, lighting up your score sheet all the time? No, I don't think he will. I don't think he's fast enough, frankly, and I don't think he's big enough to control play to the point where he can help generate chances. But you know what? I think he can be the guy who parks the slot and gets the occasional power play goal or just gets a weird rebound. I think he can be that player.
I think he could. Yeah, I think he could be a perfectly serviceable third line person.
The other thing I want to talk about this trade, and I haven't seen anybody talking about this aspect of the trade. This Mantha trade signals that the Wings are looking heavily to rely on Philip Zadina and Lucas Raymond moving forward. You don't move a first line winger unless you are pretty confident in what you have in your system. Yeah. And that's Yzerman didn't have to say it, but this action shows it.
It certainly showed that they were comfortable moving on from Mantha. And whether that says it's Zadina and Raymond, or maybe they feel they're seeing the physicality and the big body in guys like Rasmussen and Giovanni Smith. And they're saying, you know what? There's other guys that can bring his style of play. Maybe not the goal scoring, but we have guys that can score goals. We have guys that don't take a night off, that have the consistency. I think it's a statement from Yzerman that he's saying we're going to focus on consistency. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a goal scorer, whether you're physical, no matter what it is, bring it every night. And you're right in the sense that it definitely means he was comfortable moving on. And you're not comfortable moving on unless you've got guys that you think can do it.
Yeah, and that's the promising thing too. Like it sucks losing what was your biggest asset in Anthony Mantha. And but you got such a promising farm system with the Red Wings that you can make moves like this. Like Detroit is stockpiled in either future assets and draft picks or their prospects. Like they got one of the best prospect pools in the league. So, I mean, man, I just like that trade. I'm still mind blown. Like it's crazy because it's just going over the fact that you have Jacob Vrana too, who is a top 6 player.
Easy, yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, and then one interesting note I did see on the Red Wings is, Detroit was saying unless your name was Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, or Dylan Larkin, you might be gone. And that was from Brad Golly, one of the, I think he's a Detroit cover. So that just shows Stevie Y was ready to make some moves, and God, that was holy cow.
The Wings have another piece of news this week. Joe Veleno, his time with the club over in the SHL Malmo is officially over. The team's out of the playoffs. He has been on quarantine the past week, and he comes off, I believe, tomorrow. Before people get their pitchforks out for the game tomorrow, Blashill's already said he doesn't plan on playing him against Dallas. That being said, I hope that Detroit puts him in the lineup at some point this season. I mean, we've got like a month and a half before the playoffs.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I think, it actually got delayed because of the COVID outbreak with Vancouver. So now I think they had to push the playoffs a week back.
But either way, we're on the home stretch of this season at this point. So I would assume Detroit's going to start playing him soon once we get into that last 9-game stretch where you don't have to worry about a year of the ELC sliding. But it's just kind of, I mean, we're going to get a real look this time at what he's going to bring to the NHL table. He's had a chance to play over in Sweden. He's had a chance to play in Grand Rapids now. And now the Wings are going to see, a guy who might potentially be a second or third line center for them. How's he shaping up at the NHL level now? What's he looking like? Are him and Michael Rasmussen going to finally start competing for that second line center spot right behind Dylan Larkin? I think it's good. It's good for the player. It's good for the club.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah.
Competition's never a bad thing to have because it forces guys to have to bring it every night. And if somebody's not, then listen, if they're not bringing it during a competition, you can't count on them to bring it when they feel like their spot is secure.
Yeah.
And it's gonna allow Detroit to have combinations to change up lines depending on games. That's an exciting place to be. I know, David, of course, is incredibly it's Veleno.
Yeah,
he's incredibly high. Yeah.
That's David's lover.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for good reason. I'm really hoping that he gets at least 1 or 2 games up this year just to introduce him to the level and see what we can do.
You're going to see Detroit be real smart with this soon, too. It's going to be, they're not going to get him to that 9-game threshold to make sure he's.
There's no reason.
There's a little security. You might see him in a night, take a couple nights off, and another night, taking a couple nights off. And so, but yeah, another promising sign for Detroit, like we were talking about, future. And Joe Veleno's a big part of it. So it's nice to have him kind of locked up and ready to gear up for the Red Wings and, Grand Rapids, wherever he ends up. But also you got more news with your prospects, right? Lucas Raymond?
Yeah, Lucas Raymond. He another big guy for Detroit. I mean, we've been talking about, the farm system in Detroit. I'm trying to remember what the Athletic had Detroit ranked. Yeah, I want to say it was like 4th or 5th in terms of prospect pools in the NHL. They've got a lot. And even more at Seider. I mean, we see it. I feel like we say this every week, but you see nothing but awesome play out of these guys. Detroit has spent its years at the bottom. You're finally starting to see those assets start to mature, and
it's all starting to accumulate.
Yeah, Michael Rasmussen this week, even he had his goal was an empty netter, but even besides the empty netter, the effort's been there, the push has been there, the physical play's been there, the skill's been there. Detroit is seeing a lot of these younger prospects overall taking steps forward, and the pieces are kind of starting to come together, and you've got a lot of pieces all maturing at the same time.
Well, and it's really cool, and it's important to note that in the grand scheme of NHL teams and timelines, Detroit's time at the bottom was very relatively short.
Yeah.
When you look at some teams and the amount of times that they've had to rebuild and go through different windows before they've really seen success, it's got to be exciting. And it's sort of how, I don't know, Nick, it's sort of how I feel with the Hawks right now, where it's like, yes, we've had a couple of really down years, but it's shown that management with Detroit has a plan. And that's what happens when you're going to hit the bottom. When you're at the top, you come down. But are you prepared to prepared for that crash and how you come back up? We're seeing that with Detroit, and we're starting to see that in Chicago.
Yeah, it's all about that glimmer of hope. You just want a sign of things are coming. And, when you start, like, this is Detroit's sign. I mean, Sider's always on Twitter, hockey Twitter. He's making a big play, making a big hit. Lucas Raymond signing his ELC. Joe Valeno's coming over. It's like
you've got a lot of exciting things.
Yeah.
The kids are all right.
The cavalry is coming, and Detroit should be getting excited this time because we said it last year. I'm going to say it again this year. Next year's Detroit team is going to be an upgrade from this one. Like things are they're slowly going up the ladder, and before you know it, Detroit's going to be a juggernaut.
A couple of players I even forgot to mention: Jonathan Berggren, Albert Johansson. Just Detroit's got a lot of great prospects in the system. Now, do I think that those two are going to be NHL superstars? Well, not really. But again, depth pieces. Depth wins championships.
You don't have a team of all superstars. You can't support them. You can't pay them. You can't put them in the right slots. And sooner or later, if it's all superstars, it's top heavy and it falls apart. You need those depth guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what allows you to make moves, even like trades, is you got to have some depth around you where you can pick up a guy through free agency one year because you got some cap space to work with, and you kind of just go for it that year. We've kind of talked about it in recent shows. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a great example of a club how you can't load top heavy and expect to go somewhere. Sure, you're going to score a lot of goals, but what happens when the goals don't come? What happens then? You fall apart.
I mean, that said, they're number one in their division right now, but that is also a Canadian division that they get to play Ottawa a bunch of times. So, and a ravaged Vancouver. So, like, temper expectations for Toronto, but they are doing a little better this year.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing is, like, what happens if Toronto runs into a team, like Washington, like Tampa, who can just say, we're going to take your second or your third line away. You're a 2-line team now. Can you outwork us?
No.
I don't know if they can.
That's a general consensus right there. If you shut down Matthews and Tavares, like, okay. Those first two lines are it.
Was Mantha the only trade for the Red Wings on deadline day?
On deadline day, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I felt like there's more.
Well, we traded, who was it? We traded somebody else.
Yeah.
We traded Patrick Nemeth away. We traded John Merrill away. No, DeKaiser was the waiver.
Yeah. Bernier stayed put.
Yeah, and Bernier, like, that's one of the things. We can kind of talk about this when we talk about the overall trade deadline for both clubs. But yeah, Bernier stayed put, surprisingly enough. But that's really it for Wings specific news. Mm-hmm. Just sort of breaking down trade deadline day, what were your guys' opinions of, I guess we'll go over the Hawks for you guys and just the league in general.
You go ahead, Tim.
Okay. I was gonna say, obviously I'm thrilled for the Hawks. I feel like this was the best trade deadline we have had in my mind since the 2015 Cup, when we won the Cup. This was the best and most active trade deadline where not once did I go, oh no, this is gonna break bad for us, or we just got this for so and so. Thrilled with how it went. And across the league, I thought it was interesting. No, aside from the Mantha trade, no big, sexy blockbusters. some things that were very surprising, a la the Taylor Hall trade. But a lot of it was, and we saw this with the flat cap and with where teams are at, the teams that are really legitimate Stanley Cup contenders are going for picking up these players and finding depth pieces. And teams that are middling, like might make the playoffs, weren't swinging like they normally would, because somebody brought up a really good point. They're not going to get the same playoff revenue that they would in a year where they can have a full stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really playing a role. They're not getting the pressure from up top to go, hey, you're not really going to sustain this, but swing for it and go for it, because even if we get to the second round, that's going to be huge for us. I think teams went for stability this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that might not be super sexy and exciting, but it was its own different kind of cool to watch as a trade deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. So in general, like we said, like Tim said, thrilled for the Hawks, it was a different trade deadline for sure, because Stan Bowman usually likes to set the market. And when we were buyers, he wanted to go make the trades before trade deadline, before the values were too high. But now that we were sellers this year, he waited till deadline day, and night and day difference from last year though. Last year I was disappointed. This year I couldn't be more excited for the Hawks' future after that trade deadline. And we got our money's worth. We got our value. We got everything we wanted. We didn't really sell anyone too short. So, and like you said, for the rest of the league, it was a lot of trades.
Yeah.
A lot of trades happened. It was a very active trade deadline. It just wasn't those attractive names that we usually get seeing, at least one or two floated around. But, Jordan, and then your thoughts on?
Yeah, let's get your thoughts.
Obviously I liked what the Red Wings did. Just the Mantha trade, A+ in my opinion. Great asset pickups. In terms of the leagues overall, it was basically small trades here, small trades there. Nobody went for anything big. And I kind of get it. You guys mentioned playoff revenue. As much as we talk about, cap dollars, physical dollars and cents, that is also a thing that clubs have to, look at and say, well, can we afford to take on these players, when we're not having all the ticket sales, not all the concessions, all of, the stuff in like the team store, or the 50-50 raffles that they have and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that is sort of something that did play into it this year. I can't say aside from the Mantha trade and Taylor Hall trade, any trades really like blew me away, because I think they did.
Why don't we get into them for the listeners? Why don't we get into some of the bigger ones?
Like which ones?
I'll start with the Taylor Hall trade. It was Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar to Boston for Anders Bjork and a second-round pick. Again, I know a lot of people are saying that's all you got for Taylor Hall. That's all you got. And yeah, you got to be disappointed. You're the Buffalo Sabres. You brought in Taylor Hall. He's an elite player. He didn't show it in Buffalo this year, sadly, because we know what's going on there. It's just a complete shit show.
Right.
And he had a no trade clause, a no move clause. He got to Knicks, and there were better offers out there.
And he did.
Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
But he wanted to go to Boston, and Boston's like, this is what we're offering, and you're sticking with it. So, and look at you. 2 goals in 3 games for Taylor Hall since he joined the Boston. He had 2 goals for the Buffalo Sabres all year.
It's a night and day. And again, you got to feel bad for Buffalo, because it really isn't their fault with it's not like they squandered what they could have traded him for, because you're right. Taylor Hall had all of the trade power.
Yeah.
And you got what you could, given that he was only going to go to, there and maybe a couple other teams. That said, Taylor Hall, does this say that he needs to be on a better team to drive play? Because we saw in Buffalo, he just wasn't driving play. And I don't know, going back to Ryan O'Reilly a couple years ago, he even said, like, the love of hockey was killed in me in Buffalo. Yeah. I'm enjoying playing hockey again with his trade to the Blues. I don't know if Taylor Hall went under the same thing as O'Reilly and so many other people, where it's just like, I'm not going to reach my potential here in Buffalo. I don't know. Buffalo got something. I mean, Anders Bjork is fine. A second round pick is fine. They couldn't set a market on Hall, and I think it's wrong to compare. Like, people looking like, oh, look at the Janmark trade. We got more for Janmark than they got for Taylor Hall. It's comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah. You can't.
Again, I love ripping on Buffalo as much as the next person. It's great. But I'm not going to just, pick on him for something like that when it was really a lot of it out of their control.
Yeah, and there were so many people saying, it's not the same Taylor Hall. It's not, the guy just won a Hart Trophy a couple of years. Like, he's not that old either. He's still an elite level player at Boston just got for what.
And keep in mind the last, yes, he didn't thrive in Arizona, another team that squanders potential and development. Obviously not developing Hall anymore, but they squander potential there. And then you look at Buffalo, where players go to die, and I mean, basically, of course he's not going to thrive there. So on Boston, where they at least have like a team and a plan, he's probably going to do pretty good.
I mean, I kind of called it. I said Boston was going to go get a depth forward. They got Curtis Lazar, but they also got Taylor Hall with them.
They got Taylor Hall too.
I mean, I think really it was only Boston I think Florida was content with what they were doing. I know Florida was in the mix. New York, we thought was in the mix, the Islanders, but once they traded for Kyle Palmieri, that was really it. So,
Palmieri makes so much sense for the Islanders that I'm thrilled with that move for them.
So Boston really was, kind of just like the last one standing, and they're like, here, you want this? We'll give you this.
Yeah, but Buffalo's got so much more to worry about than getting a second and Anders Bjork.
They just need a completely restart. Maybe move the franchise for a couple of years, let them clear their minds. And
I say it every week. They need new ownership.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that will fix this team. They can do a rebuild every 5 years for the rest of their existence, and until they get new ownership, they will be where they are.
Tim, there are these two magic words that you always say when we're talking to team construction, and they both start with the letter D. Draft and develop. Buffalo does not do either.
Yep. It's the develop that really, really drives me up a wall, because they have so many people, Reinhart, Middlestat, Dahlin, even Rasmus Ristolainen, guys that they just absolutely squandered and wrecked their development. And every year they're like, why isn't he thriving and being what we want him to be? And it's like,
it's you guys.
Because you didn't develop him. This is your fault.
Just threw him into the pack. But an interesting tidbit on this with Bjork going to Buffalo, it seemed like the Blackhawks are actually going to try to go rescue him, because there was a report that the Blackhawks made a call to Buffalo and they were interested in Anders Bjork. So
yeah, I saw that. He seems like the kind of guy that Stan goes after too. So
Stan's like, hold on, Anders, I'll try to save you. But I mean, that's got to feel awful going from like, oh yeah, we're going to the playoffs this year. Then you're like, hop on the train. You're going to Buffalo.
Shuffle off the Buffalo, where I hope you didn't like playing hockey.
Another big one, trade deadline day, Sam Bennett to the Florida Panthers for a second-round pick and Emu. What's his last name?
I like Bennett to Florida.
I do too. I mean, the thing about Sam Bennett is he has two different names. He had two different names in Calgary. It was playoff Sam Bennett and regular season Sam Bennett. And he's one of those guys that he's a playoff type player. He's a physical player. He's a former. I think he was drafted one pick after Leon Draisaitl and his draft.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a big trade it's a type of trade that Florida's going to go. They're going for it, and Sam Bennett's a promising player. He's still young too. He struggled in Calgary, but Calgary has their issues as well.
Yeah, Calgary struggled.
Yeah, it was Emil Heineman. So he was a second round pick in 2020. So they got essentially two second round picks for him,
which is what Calgary needs right now.
Yes, and then
more than Sam Bennett.
And then Hayden Fleury to the Ducks. That was a intriguing one as well for where they're at in defensive depth.
That's my thing, because I like Hayden Fleury. I think that he's got a lot of potential. I'm curious to see what they're building in Anaheim. I mean, you look at Jamie Drysdale is there, Trevor Zegras is there. You're slowly getting this young this young team, which one of the big knocks was that they got old fast. John Gibson's still in his 20s, if I recall correctly. Hayden Fleury's like 23.
Yeah, young, he was former first-round pick for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I mean, the Anaheim, there's one of those teams that they hit their rock bottom of their rebuild, and now they're just going to offload some assets. So, one more. Oh, Jeff Carter. He was the last big one.
Yeah,
he
went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Which, man, I just sort of figured he'd retire a King, but like, it'd be curious to see him as a third line center in Pittsburgh. Because I think he's still got a little bit to bring to the table if he's a third line center.
He's still got offensive upside too. I mean,
but I mean, you're not going to, again, Crosby, Malkin, Jeff Carter.
Still, he's
that's great.
Yeah, he was a top 6 for the Kings. And he said he's playing next year too. So the Pittsburgh's not only going to have him this year, they're going to have him next year because he had 2 years remaining.
Yep.
And again, he's won before. He's a proven winner. He's a great locker room guy. He was an alternate captain for the Kings and the Flyers. So this is a big trade for Pittsburgh, going to go overlooked. But I do love the depth, and yeah, it's always good to acquire a guy that's, a proven winner. And having Jeff Carter as your third center, no matter what age he is, you got that scoring touch there.
Yeah. Well, and you think this has to make room now for Quentin Byfield.
Yep.
So it'll be Kopitar and Byfield. And Turcotte's a center too.
Turcotte as well.
So like it's some combination of those three potentially if somebody doesn't go to the wing. It was a great move for the Kings because they needed to shed some salary. Because my God, Doughty's got a heck of a contract.
It's big.
It's gross. And Kopitar's 10 mil or wherever he's at is still he's got a couple seasons left on that. So shedding Carter's salary was a movable salary that they could shed, and they've got young guys that can hopefully step into that role. I think it was a great move for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, really no other big trades. I'm going through the list here. What's noteworthy to mention? Really nothing. Yeah, I mean, but it was it was a fun trade deadline. A lot of trades. Again, it was a lot of minor names. We just mentioned the big ones there. One interesting thing I found out was that Vegas actually called Anaheim about Ryan Getzlaf, so that was potentially a thing. Never ended up happening, but
that'd have been interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, another trade deadline come and gone. We've seen a lot. I think the Red Wings, all in all, were probably the biggest winners from this trade deadline after making that one huge move.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's going to be it for trade deadline talk. We can go ahead and move on to the next segments of our show. In this next segment, we're going to do what's called the flashback and the flash forward. We talk about the week that was and the week that's going to be for both the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings. Let's go ahead and just start with it was rivalry week this week. The Blackhawks and Red Wings played twice. So we'll go over just the individual game for each club, and then we'll go over both of the other games. So you guys played against Columbus and won 4-3, and we played against Carolina and won 3-1. The Columbus one, was that the overtime one?
Yes. I think it's the one that Hagel sunk in overtime.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a beaut.
That was that was a great game for the Hawks. They started off slow. I think they were down. They were trailing 2-0. They fought back.
Yep. They let up 2 goals in the first 3 minutes of the game.
Yeah, it was infuriating, and it's like, but they rallied back. Especially saying bye to some of the guys you went to war with to start the season, and so it's great to see them overcome that. I mean, you got to be thrilled with Hagel. I mean, I know.
How could you not be? We say it every week, but the guy represents everything that Chicago fans love. And, he's hardworking, never stops. He's fast. He just drives play. He gets guys, the puck. He's in the right position. If he can start to capitalize on some of his scoring opportunities and like breakaways, he's going to be that much more dangerous of a player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my
what
bad.
more could you ask for even out of a guy like that? I mean, you're talking a depth player who tries every single night, and he's on a cheap deal. Like, what more do you want out of somebody?
No, you can't ask for anything more out of a. I think he was a 5th round, 6th round pick back with Buffalo.
That they didn't sign.
Yeah. So this is just Brandon Hagel just continuing to prove wrong and continue to be a gem for the Blackhawks. That game was infuriating. I think Line going coast to coast. He's just a Hawks killer.
I mean, listen, it was infuriating to see some defensive people out of play and whatnot, out of position, but that line goal was beautiful.
It was.
I mean, like, listen, as a fan of hockey, it was a heck of a goal.
Yeah, but it's just like, why does Line only he struggled all year in Columbus, and then he plays the Hawks, and it's just like he goes Sam Gagne mode. He's like,
yeah, it was dumb.
But it was cool to Hagel. That was Hagel's first sniper actual.
Yeah, it was one that wasn't just like a dirty rebound or sneaking it through. It was a heck of a goal, and you saw how much. Two things you saw with that. One, it's clear how much that win meant to the team for the way that they just mobbed Hagel. They're playing in such a heightened mindset right now. And two, how much Hagel means to the team because of how stoked they were then for Hagel as well.
Yeah. So, all the kids on there, it was all the kids in overtime, Doc, Kellenuk, and Hagel. So, promising to see. And Kershaw with a beauty feed from Kane as well. So, yeah, great game. Good for the Hawks to fight back. It was 2 big points. We're coming to the stretch where every game is looking like
it's a playoff game.
Yeah, so this is the playoff stretch for the Hawks. They're starting their playoffs now, and yeah, man. it was an infuriating game, but in the end, we got the win.
Yep.
And then so Detroit had the Carolina game. They won 3-1. Yeah, 3-1. Detroit's been so weird. Like Chicago was the one Verona got the goal, but Carolina I don't know what. I really don't think that Detroit earned that win comparatively to speaking to Carolina. I think they got really lucky, if I'm being completely honest. I think Carolina has more to give. I think Detroit happened to catch them on an off night. You got to be happy with the 3-1 win, though. We've been saying it all season. It's little victories. You can't completely bottom out and just tank, because then you end up like organizations like the Edmonton Oilers and the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep.
But that's a good showing. Just the fact that you can win against a top caliber team. We'll wait for Nick to finish what he's doing before we talk about rivalry week.
Sorry. No. Carolina, Detroit. I don't care what you say. You may not deserve to win it. When you beat Carolina, you got to be proud.
Yeah. No, definitely. You've had some of those weird wins where you embarrassed Tampa one game. Yeah, you beat Carolina in this game. You might not deserve to win, but I think it was Colleton that said the other day for the Hawks, he's like, yeah, it was an ugly win. I'm not thrilled with how we played, but we got 2 points. So really doesn't matter. And that's how it's got to be for Detroit. It's those little victories of you stole a win from the better team.
And Detroit, we'll get into the Hawks win, Hawks loss, but they beat Tampa and Carolina in their 2 most recent wins besides the Hawks. So, you've got to be impressed with what they're doing. It's in a season that's kind of like a lost cause. It's just still they're winning games that they don't technically should be. They're not technically should be. But Friday, oh God, I'm gonna be angry for a little bit.
Yeah, right. That was. It's so funny because I feel like there's a general consensus that the Friday game was one of the worst games the Hawks have played. But then, it was the Friday game, or the Thursday game. Days.
It was Thursday.
The Thursday game, then it blends together for me at this point.
It's all
but I feel like there's a general consensus that it was one of the worst games that the Hawks have played in a long time, and yet the Hawks themselves are like, don't think that we played that bad. So I don't know. I think they didn't play great.
Let's get it from the winning. Jordan, you go first from the winning side.
Yeah.
Before I get pissed off.
I'm just gonna say it. the Thursday game, the Hawks looked like hot garbage.
Yeah.
Passing was terrible. Puck control was terrible. Like the puck management was terrible. You guys had like a couple decent chances where you hit the post. Like, okay, every team basically has one or two of those a game, though. You guys couldn't generate anything. That was,
yeah, we couldn't get anything going. I think that's just the thing. And we see that in the games that we really blow, it's that we're not generating. We can't get transition going. Passing is sloppy. We're just not connecting. I feel like every one of the things that are issues with our team was in full bloom on in that game. Usually it's like one or two of those things stands out to me, but man, they did not play well.
They didn't. I mean, Troy Stretcher's goal off Link. I mean, you can't be mad at Lincoln because he got almost.
He made the initial save.
He got almost all the puck. It's just it flutters in, and
that's a weird goal that happens in like games, but it just got compounded by a game like that.
Yeah, I mean, then Vrana out of the penalty box and scoring his first as a Red Wing. I just didn't like the effort, especially with Nashville losing that night, and you need to gain traction on them. But we'll get into them soon too. But God, that's a game you need to win, and I felt confident going against. I'm like, this is 4 points. This is 4 points. This is 4 points. No, Detroit shut us up real quick. They dominated that game. I don't care what the Hawks say. I'm not going to be too mad about it, but they didn't play good.
No,
it was a pathetic effort for the Hawks that night. And I mean, I guess I'm not as mad as I said I'd be, but it's just it was infuriating.
I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so in on the Hawks right now, and it's just that game bummed me out.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, like, I'm right there with you.
What was with your guys' power play setup? Like, how did you guys leave Vrana that much space to get out of the box? Because he wasn't even like beginning
that
to compete.
happens. Not even just with the Hawks, but I notice around the NHL, are we not paying attention to when the guy comes out of the box? Because the amount of times that somebody comes out of the box, gets the puck, and zoom, they're on a one-on-one, like they're on a breakaway. Man, that happens more than I think it should.
Leggett even said, like, when he was questioned, is like when he was asked about it, he's like, "Did you alert the boys?" And he said, "Yeah." Like, he was banging his stick on the ground, let him know the penalty was over. And the Hawks in general, besides, I mean, it's improved, but I think I read the stat where they had 2 goals in their last, whatever it was, 27, and they allowed shorthanded goals 3 times in their last 27. So
it's because the shorthanded goals are becoming a very serious concern for me, where I'm really starting to actually get nervous when we're on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, I know
Welcome to the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't like this.
I know it's not like it wasn't shorthanded, but you got to be ready for, and especially Vrana, of all people, the guy that is going to bury the puck when he's wide open.
Yep.
It's just, you can't let that happen. You got to work on that. And, I mean, I guess they bounced back. What was it? It was Saturday night?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Last night.
Oh, geez.
Listen, right. I get it. The days have blurred for me.
I'm just going to say it. I think the Wings threw Saturday night's game away. They owned the first period. What was it, like 5 shots to 12 by the end of the first?
Yep, that sounds right.
They got given ample power play opportunities, a 3-on-5 for a little bit of one. Like, I'm trying to remember who was back skating. Somebody was skating back to our own zone, and he literally just gave the puck away when he was gliding towards the boards. Like, good on the Hawks for capitalizing on chances, but geez, oh Pete, dude, Detroit threw that game to the Hawks.
For all the frustrations that I had on the Thursday game, loved what I saw on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, Subban got a shutout. It was what? One was an empty net, but it was a 4-0 game. I mean, you can't be mad about that kind of effort, but I do think you're right. The first period, Detroit really controlled play, dominated in our zone a lot. We managed to skate through, scrape by. And then the rest of the game, we really just sort of turned it on and said, no, we're better than this. And so we split the series. I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, it was 10 shots to 5 after the first period. So, yeah, Detroit really controlled the tempo of the first period, and then Kaner finally got back in the scoring sheet. We haven't seen a goal from him in a while. So, when Patrick Kane scores, typically good things happen for the Blackhawks. So that was that was the light that we needed. Subban looked phenomenal. I mean, he hasn't played much. He's played 10 games this season, 13. It's a small number, small sample size, but he looked great, especially he was off for like 6 straight games too. So
yeah, that's a good point.
It was a big game for Subban. Hinostroza, big game from him, 3 assists. As we were mentioning, guys
love seeing it.
In. But and then Detroit was 0 for 6 on the power play. So that was the big. I know Jordan hates Detroit's power play, but that was huge and a big win. Nashville lost again, so we gained traction on them. And you're saying Nashville a lot. We got them coming up soon too.
We got 3 games. That'll be for the flash forward, but.
Who is your guys' player of the week this week for the Chicago Blackhawks?
Nick, you want to go first?
I'm gonna go with Duncan Keith.
All right.
Keith had goals in back-to-back games, one in Detroit's loss and the one in Columbus. He's playing PP1 now with Boquist out as well, and he that's when our power play actually started to show some signs. They developed some great chances. I thought Keith played phenomenal. He's not known for his offensive instincts. You're starting to see him on the score sheet. So back-to-back games with a goal. I gotta go with Duncan Keith.
Love that pick a lot. I'm gonna go with Vinny Hinostroza.
Yeah,
I had to. I mean, my God, the guy's got five assists in 6 games. He looks like he's just having fun and he's rejuvenated. He loves being back in Chicago, and we know that getting guys back to Chicago that have had success here in the past doesn't guarantee anything. But that said, he fits really well with this new version of the team. And it doesn't matter who he's playing with up and down the lineup. He's doing the right things. He's fast. He's getting people the puck. And I'm loving, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. And you can tell that he's doing that and he's finding the love of it again. And I mean, he maybe scores some goals, but other than that, you can't be mad about it. There's nothing to complain about.
No, not at all. I mean, great pick. It was either that or Keith. I'm glad.
Yep, that's kind of where I was at with that, so I dig it.
I'm glad we had a split. So, Jordan, how about you?
I got to give it to Mike Rasmussen. The kid's young. Mantha stepped out as the big man, so to speak, in Detroit. Rasmussen stepped right in and filled the steps. I mentioned it earlier. Sure, his goal this week was an empty netter. Okay, whatever. But still, the 2 assists was good. The physical play was good. Weirdly enough, his hustle has been on point the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Again, just continuing to take steps forward, and I've liked what I've seen out of him. And I'm hoping next year they let him have the chance to play some second line center behind Larkin, because I really think he's starting to earn it.
That's David's as well.
Yep, I was just gonna say that's David's as well. So clearly a heck of a week for Rasmussen.
Yeah, he's looking more and more composed at the NHL level. I mean, Michael Rasmussen, consensus pick for you Detroit guys. So obviously it's the right choice.
So that's going to be the flashback. The flash forward. This one's going to be a really easy week to talk about for both clubs. The Wings are going to be playing against the Dallas Stars 4 times if you count the game tomorrow. And then the Hawks are going to be playing against the Nashville Predators 3 times this week. So it's going to be rough.
I hate it so much. I really do. First off, you guys need to do your job and take a couple of those from Dallas.
Yeah.
Because I don't like where they're breathing on us either. And boy, Nick, I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, this is like a playoff series.
It is.
We need to win these games against the Predators, which we have not won games against the Predators.
Yeah, 3-2 against the Preds this season. This is this is the biggest week of the Hawks season. Like you said, it is a playoff series. You lose to Detroit or you lose all three. Guess what? That sets you back 12 points.
Yeah.
And
we can't afford it.
No, I mean, you need to win in regulation. Don't even give Nashville the credit of losing in overtime. You got to take these games in regulation. You struggled against them all year, and I'm scared.
Our season hinges on these 3 games. That is not an overreaction. If we drop these games, we're out because they hold the power over us at that point.
Yeah, you lose 2 out of 3. It's looking bleak. You lose all 3. Good night,
it's
Jim
done.
Kite.
I do not think that we can bounce back to get through them. If they weren't the team that's right above us, then maybe, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you guys said it. Chicago's got to win these games in regulation. You can't give Nashville more points because they're neck and neck with you. Dallas, they still have games in hand on you, don't they?
Dallas, they're at 43 games played. Chicago's at 45.
Yeah, so they've got 2 games in hand on you. Plus, I mean,
and point back.
That's it. And I mean, I love the Wings to death, but let's be realistic here. You're playing against the Red Wings. It's as long as you don't come out completely flat, you should win those games. I mean, your roster's not weak. The Hawks have to win these games in regulation. There's no room to let that not happen. And they, like you guys said, Detroit needs to take some of these games to keep your guys' playoff hopes alive.
Right. Like you're playing them 4 times with the game tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm. If it's 4 times.
Then we need you to take 2. Realistically,
all 4?
Yeah, I mean, all 4 would be magical, but listen, I don't rest my hopes that high.
Let's take it day by day. Let's get 1, go get another. Go.
Yeah, exactly. What we need you to not do is take them to overtime and then lose.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, so to speak.
Yep. You guys can't hurt us. Dallas can, and you can hurt them. So I'm good.
Yeah. God, I'm scared. I'm scared for this week. Like, so much relies, and of course it comes down to Nashville, who we have struggled all year against. And man, I'm nervous. I don't know. I'm not feeling good, especially not winning against them all year.
What do you
They've
think
been on a hot streak recently too. That's the other thing, man. Like
everything.
They just sort of came out of nowhere and said, we think we're going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't. Nick, what do you think what do you think we're taking?
I'm thinking we're gonna take 1. I think, like, realistically, I think we take 1. It's just, I don't know. It's so tough. They just play a style for some reason. I want to be optimistic. I do. But they play a style that we just, for some reason, we can't even look like a competent NHL team out there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm gonna say that I'm not an optimist. That said, I'm gonna swing for the fences because I'm gonna hope. Hear me out here. I'm gonna hope that something kicks in and it is like a playoff series, and the Hawks give everything they have, and we take 2 and take 1 to overtime.
I'm on board. I mean,
I think realistically, one of our 2 wins we take to overtime, which is gonna frustrate us. But I'd rather have 2 points.
Yeah, I'm glad one of us is looking at the brighter side of things for this.
It's gonna suck. It just means I'm gonna crash. I'm flying too close to the sun with this one. But
we know how it happens when I say good things about the Hawks. I mush it. If I say Hawks are back, guess what? They're gonna fucking just go spiral downward. So I can't be nice about them, especially in the biggest week of the season,
and especially against a team that we have no reason to believe they can beat.
Yes, Jordan, brighten our mood a little bit. What's gonna happen with Detroit this week?
Yeah.
They beat Carolina, weirdly enough.
Beat Chicago.
I think they will win 1 of the games against Dallas.
I need you to do more than that.
I think they will win 1. I think that another one will go to an overtime loss, and then the other two are just going to be regulation losses.
Oh,
I know it's not what you want to hear, but I'm a pessimist realist here.
Yeah, I know. And it's realistically in any other week, it's what I would say too.
we had such a good week too. Detroit was doing great things for their future. Hawks were making great trades, and then it's like, oh yeah, here's Nashville.
Hey, wait a minute. We're still living in the now, and there's pain.
I would be more optimistic if we were playing Tampa Bay right now.
Me
Honestly,
too.
I would. Just because we at least have a win against them. Nashville just has a number. And then, of course, you guys are playing Dallas, who is 1 point below us. It's like we might drop back a couple spots here, so this sucks.
I mean, so Dallas has 2 games in hand on you. Nashville, as you said, a point above you, right?
Yeah, and they're a game ahead. We have a game on Nashville.
Yeah.
Okay. So in theory, if you take your game split with Nashville to an overtime, that's a point which puts you guys even. Looking at the schedule, if you take 2 of the games in regulation against Nashville, that's a 4-point spread. And then the other one, if you lose in regulation, it becomes a 2-point spread. If it's a loss in overtime, it's a 1-point spread. No, a 3-point spread. Sorry, I can't do math, kids. Don't listen to me.
I'm not a math magician. Don't worry, I get it.
Dallas, if they take 2 of the games, that's 4 points. If my prediction's right and they take 3, that'll be 6. Plus the 2 games on hand, if they average out, again, a point each one, that's 8. So that gives Dallas 8 points in the standings. That puts them guaranteed ahead of you guys, and I think basically for the rest of the season then. Yeah. So I think it really comes down to this Nashville series. That's going to determine whether you guys make the playoffs this year.
These 3 games are the season.
Yeah, it's this is do or die. It sucks to say because we still got almost a month of hockey left, but this is really it. And
I don't know about you, but I'm still having nightmares on the 2017 playoff, sweep from Nashville. Yeah. They're in our heads.
They're one of, and especially just how much they want to keep us out of their barn. It's just Nashville we just hate. And guess who's going there next week? This guy. Hey. I'm not going to the game. I'm just going there. So hopefully, I bring my jinx with me, my curse with me. So
do us a favor.
Yeah, I'll go there and piss on the Bridgestone Arena.
Oh, perfect.
Take a picture.
Yeah, post that on the Twitter.
Yeah, it's not Nashville. Yeah, so I guess the big week. The big week.
That's it. This is going to be the week. I feel like this is do or die for the Hawks. Yeah, you got a month, but this week has got extreme swaying power in the standings. I think that's pretty much it for our show. I don't have any other pieces of news to talk about this week. I don't have any fan mail set aside right now.
Yeah, no fan mail. So I mean, you guys suck, but it's all right. No, I'm kidding.
I'm looking at the comments on the live stream. My dear friend Anthony would like me to remind people he did play roller hockey and he could have played wing. He had a lot of potential. Could have played wing. Would love to see him back out there for that stuff. Maybe a men's league.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the show. We've talked about the trade deadline. We've talked about the overall consensus on just both teams in general. We've talked about the week that was and how big this week's going to be coming up for the Blackhawks. I really feel like we basically covered everything for this week to talk about.
Yeah, really.
I feel good about that.
It's now it's just kind of like in the Hawks' hands to make us happy.
I hate that.
So yeah, next week could either be an energetic show from the Hawks side, from me, my Tim's standpoint. It could be dark days ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
We might be writing a eulogy this time next week.
But anyway, that's going to be it for our show, everyone. So for everybody who's tuning in, whether it's on the Facebook live stream right now or on YouTube or listening on SoundCloud, we want to thank you guys for stopping by the show. At the end of the day, this is a podcast. It's by fans for fans. There's no corporate sponsors or anything like that. Yeah. This is I mean, I've gotten one contact from a sponsor, but I instantly nixed it because I didn't like who the sponsor was.
That's fair. Okay, I was gonna say, wait, what?
You're gonna tell me after we hang up this call.
Yeah, that's an after the call talk.
But yeah, this is a podcast. It's by fans for fans. It's for us to enjoy talking, but also for you guys to interact with us and engage with us. We're not an official podcast from an NHL team, for example, where we can give our honest opinions without having to sugarcoat anything, which is kind of fun. And again, it's a 2-team podcast. You get an insider look, and then you get somebody from the outside saying, "Whoa, pump the brakes a little bit," or "Hey, you're not giving them enough credit." Like, this is what the show's all about, and we really want you guys involved with it as well. So if you want to get in touch with the podcast, whether it be fan mail, questions, comments, feedback for the show, there are a number of ways to get in contact with the show. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at StickBladePod. You can find us on SoundCloud. The username is StickBlade Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on, I already said YouTube. You can get in touch with us via old-fashioned email, stickbladepodcast@gmail.com. I mean, whatever you want to do to get in contact with us and give us any sort of feedback, comments, whatever it is, feel free to do it. We love engaging with you guys. You guys generally give us great questions to talk about and discuss on the show. And we love hearing from you guys. It's kind of cool just, to interact with you. It makes the show just a little bit different. But in the meantime, you guys take care of each other, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we'll see you guys back here next week. This has been another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. Let's go Wings. Let's really go Hawks if they want to make the playoffs. In the meantime, you guys stay safe. Take care.